Extra, tell all about it. It's Dave's Big Dictionary. All right, so early in the program, when my darling and adorable wife Joyce was here, she helps me out. She opened the dictionary. We do this almost every week. At random, put her finger down on a word, and then my job is to then think about that word and come up with some anecdote or story related to me, or just whatever's in my head that the word brings up. Because I'm a clever and on-the-spot kind of funny guy sometimes. So the word that her finger fell down upon was martial. And it's spelled this way, M-A-R-T-I-A-L, that version of martial, which is out of Mars, the Roman god of war. So it's of, relating to, or suited to war, or a warrior. For example, martial music. Of or relating to an army, or military life, or warlike. Martial. Okay. So that is our Dave's Big Dictionary word of the week. I've got to talk to you on some level about martial. Okay, I'm just going to go random of the things that are in my head. I know there's a Lou Reed song that is either titled, or he talks about martial law. Martial law. Do I have anything to say about that? I don't, except that 2 weeks ago, I rewatched the old Costa Gavras film, Missing. And if you've never seen it, it's a very good movie. I don't know why Roger Ebert had a bug up his ass about this film, but Costa Gavras, best known for doing the political thriller Z, which is a terrific movie. This movie is pretty close. Costa Gavras is a political filmmaker, a social filmmaker, and he did a film based on this terrible true story. And they don't really mention the country, I think, but the true story happened in Chile during the Pinochet years, when the American government was officially staging and helping to create a coup over there. And what happened was people were being shot in the streets and disappeared. Same stuff that happens in Argentina, same stuff that happens in a whole bunch of Latin American and African countries. And sometimes America looks the other way, and sometimes America is actually physically involved in these behind the scenes because we want our guy in power and not the socialist or Marxist person or the military person in power at that place. So Costa Gavras did this film called Missing, all about this young guy who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's a writer, kind of a journalist. He's been living in this country, which is beautiful. I mean, Chile, apparently, you go by the water, it's a lovely country and a lovely place to be, but not when you're in the middle of essentially a civil war. And suddenly, he's gone. His place is all turned over, things are smashed, and one morning he disappears and is taken away. And now, his father and his wife are out. They physically go there to search for him, and they want answers from officials, they want answers from senators, they want answers from the local customs people to try and figure out, where is he? What happened to? Did he get out of the country safely? Is he in prison somewhere? Is he being tortured? Or was he just taken away, shot, and thrown somewhere along with thousands of other people, innocent, guilty, and what have you, in vaults or in caves and so forth? And there's gunfire, as it were, throughout the film, but it's really more about the personalities involved, and it's about the lead character, Jack Lemmon, who is great, who is Jack Lemmon, coming to this town of, being the kind of character who has always believed in the world functioning the way it ought to. That if white men are telling you something is true, you believe them. If your government is saying this, it's doing what's best for Americans and for you. And they're not going to fib to you. Right? And Sissy Spacek, she knows better. She realizes, just living in Chile and having lived and being younger, a whole generation younger, saying, no, that's not the way it works. And that the government lies all the time. Our government does bad things and sponsors bad things elsewhere. And eventually, the point of the film is that Lemon comes around to become incredibly cynical and find out what did happen to his son, and that he's been lied to and fibbed to and misdirected all the way along by a bunch of assholes. It's a really good movie called Missing. But and this is all brought to my head just by martial, because what's happening is the whole place is in martial law. It gives a very claustrophobic feeling to the film, because once the sun goes down, there's a curfew, and if you're out after curfew, you're not just rounded up, you're shot on the street. And it happened, people are finding dead bodies on the street every morning. So, and it's a big thing to make sure that if you're an American, if you're an expat, or if you're just visiting, or a journalist, you get back to your hotel before nightfall, or you don't come out of it alive. And that's done very, very well in the film. The only caveat I have about it is sometimes the dialogue is a little on the nose. Sometimes when Lemon is debating SpaceX or debating some other people, the officials are trying to quote-unquote help. The dialogue, you can feel the writers, the screenwriter churning it out and having a social debate in word form. That really isn't the way people actually talk to each other. But otherwise, fine movie involving martial law. I got it in there somehow. And there you go. Can I talk about anything else involving martial? Military music, like marching band music? I can go back to the old statement from a couple of decades ago in terms of defending the National Endowment for the Arts, when that was under fire from Republicans. And you can bet with people like Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court that the NEA isn't going to get much love over the next 40 years of funding art that may be seen as controversial or anti-Republican. So when in the Jesse Helms era, in the NEA 4, or it was the NEA 7 era, when it looked like the NEA would be taken away and chopped or cut completely, right? One of the statistics that I found that was absolutely galling is that, we talk about, or senators were talking about, how can we give away this money to artists? Let the whole thing be it's a democracy and it's a capitalist society, so let the people vote with their wallets. Don't fund artists. If an artist creates something that people want to pay for, people will pay for it. If they don't want to see it, they won't. But we shouldn't subsidize the arts, especially if it doesn't glorify the flag or America or make us seem wonderful. That was the thinking. It's still, I'm sure, the thinking of people like Orrin Hatch and people like, that horrible little toad who was flip-flopping, so-called John McCain's best buddy who's in the Congress. I'm thankfully forgetting his name, but that closeted little bugger, whatever the fuck his name is. So the people like that, thinking like that, is still with us, I'm sure, and will only get greater if the Republicans hold Congress and the House, and if Trump gets another 4 years in 2020. But the statistic that caught my mind years ago was that, the NEA spends X million dollars on funding theater and dance and opera and sculpture and painting in America. A lot of money. We spend more money in America on military marching bands. Think about that for a minute. When we talk about, the military doesn't have any money, we need to break the budget with gazillions and trillions of dollars because the military's hurting and they can't do this and they can't fix the VA. And it's like, we spend more money funding military marching bands in the United States than we do for all the money that the NEA sends to help writers and artists and thinkers. Now, this is an old statistic, and I never actually researched it to make sure that it was really true. And it may have changed. It may have also gotten worse. Do your homework. Go Googling. Do your homework. See if it is true. If it is, and you start getting these senators and congressmen who are heeding the call of some of their gun-toting, Dixie-waving constituents saying, well, why the hell we got to give this money to these Jews and faggots who are making, shows that don't show America right? And it's like, no. Why not? Why? Because we're giving money to people to march up and down with fucking trombones and drums and brass instruments in a line, in a procession, so they can move across almost like tanks, moving down a street under martial law, and all the children can see the soldiers in their shiny uniforms with the sun glinting off these instruments and go, ooh, wow, yeah, wow, in a parade. Whoopee. Anyway, that's me and the word Marshall on Dave's Big Dick Dictionary.